There's something we have to talk about in the new Avatar Aang movie coming out in October. So as we all know, Avatar Studios released some t-shirt designs which showed the first ever look at Team Avatar in the new Avatar Aang movie, which is coming out later this year. We get to see finally something we've been waiting so long for, which was of course seeing Aang aged up a bit from the Last Airbender series, Katara, Zuko, Sokka, Toph, all the main characters of Team Avatar, except one. Everyone's been asking since this dropped, where is Suki? Suki's part of Team Avatar. I mean, she's shield and sword with Sokka, so where is she? That's the question everyone's been wondering, and it's actually gotten quite ominous because some theories are not too good. Some theories are actually quite unsettling, so hit that subscribe button and let's break down where Suki might be in the Avatar Aang movie. So the first thing we have to do is use the comics. There has been so many comics released that take place after the end of the Last Airbender series in the years since it ended, and there's so much rich content and Suki's in it, so let's go to the contents of the comics and see where that might place her by the time of the movie, which should be just a few years after the main series. So the first thing we 100% know is that she does continue leading the Kyoshi warriors after the Last Airbender series, and it shows that she's still active in the political center of the world. The Kyoshi warriors at that time after the series are serving as Fire Lord Zuko's personal bodyguards in the early post-war era. Obviously Zuko didn't trust the royal guard that Ozai had and that Azula was using by the time of the end of the series, and we see that Azula was going through many different variations from the Dai Li to the two sisters for who to have as her guards in the palace. So Zuko chose to go completely off script and he chose a group from the Earth Kingdom being the Kyoshi warriors. This means that just a few years after the events of the series, Suki is still a trusted and visible member and close to all of the major events. Now if anything, the comic suggests she remained very relevant during this period, so she definitely isn't dead by that point. Now another thing I have to mention, and this is a book I've covered plenty of times on the channel, but it's the book that Aang wrote for Tenzin as he grew up and to teach him and pass down all the knowledge of what happened with Team Avatar during the events of the original series and pass all that down to Tenzin so he could continue the Air Nation by himself, because of course Aang wasn't going to live forever. The weight of the Air Nation was on Tenzin's shoulders. Now this book actually takes place after when the Aang movie is supposed to be set, and Suki is mentioned as being alive and the head of the Kyoshi warriors during that time. So if they're going to keep the canon of the book, which I really hope they do because that book has been a centerpiece of the Avatar lore for so many years, that means that Suki is definitely alive during that period. So we can rule out that she's dead. So where did she go? Well, now let's look to the legend of Korra. We know that during Korra there is absolutely no mentions of her at all during the show. I think she's in one of the pieces of art which depict Team Avatar, maybe in the intro of the first episode. I can't remember exactly when they showed that, but she's there, but she's not mentioned by the characters in universe at that time at all. That's actually pretty strange, because if she was around close to that time, she would have been mentioned, she would have been in the memories of those people. So that kind of leads me to say that she did die many years before Korra, but still after the Avatar Aang movie. So many of the fans have started actually filling that gap of where she may be, why she's not mentioned during Korra. Some have said she's died young, some have said maybe she and Sokka broke up and that's why she's not relevant to Republic City or to the Southern Water Tribe anymore. Maybe she returned to Kyoshi Island to rule it or to lead it, and we didn't see that in Korra, so maybe that's why she wasn't mentioned in the series. Maybe the writers just never cared enough to define her future and we're going to find out about it during the Avatar Aang movie. It's not really too clear. I mean, we already know the major later life facts about Aang, Katara, Toph and Zuko, and Sokka is at least acknowledged as being dead by the time of Korra's era in lore, in the episodes. So Suki gets absolutely no comparison or clarification in any of the sources. So what's going on? Let's go through all of those theories I mentioned before and why they probably aren't legit but could be. So the first is the theory that she died young. So why do people think this? Well, Suki is never given a clear later in life fate in canon, and there's no confirmed explanation for where she is by the time of the Legend of Korra. Her absence from later era discussion stands out more because the post-show comics actually keep her important for a while. After the 100-Year War, she continues leading the Kyoshi warriors and serves as part of Fire Lord Zuko's bodyguard detail and later rejoins Team Avatar during the Cranefish Town conflict. And the Cranefish Town conflict is actually what leads to the formation of Republic City, and that's one of the most important events in the entire Avatar history. So the theory goes that if she was still that relevant early on and then later disappears from the historical record, maybe she died before the next generation had much reason to mention her. However, the points against this are that there are no canon sources saying that Suki died young. None of the surface sources provide a date, a cause, or even a confirmation of death. So the Suki died young claim appears pretty much to just be a fandom telephone, maybe from a fanfic that people read back in the day, and that's somehow still sticking around in the conscious memory of the fans. Next is that Sokka and Suki Suki broke up, and this one is actually a bit more interesting. This is one of the most common non-death explanations because teenage relationships don't automatically have to become lifelong marriages. The comics keep Suki active in major events, but they don't actually lock in a marriage for Suki and Sokka, and they aren't as close as they are in the series really in some of these comics. But it also doesn't show them as a part. It keeps Suki close to Team Avatar's orbit rather than clearly detached from them. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they probably wouldn't break up off screen like that, and I don't think it'd be too much of a fun thing for the fans to see that they're already broken up if we get to the movie and that's the first we've heard of it after like 10 years. So no, I don't think they've broken up. Next is that Suki returned to Kyoshi Island and lived a separate life away from Team Avatar, leading her own destiny and ruling Kyoshi Island in her image. Now, the Kyoshi warriors were founded to protect Kyoshi Island, and Suki's deepest formal identity is as their leader. So that would actually make a lot of sense for her character. That was what she was born to do basically. So maybe she has gone back there. And that would actually give a clean in-universe explanation for why she might drift away from Republic City and the main story later on by the time of Avatar Korra. It also avoids the need for a dramatic explanation like death or a huge breakup with Sokka. So what are the points against this one? Well, the comics complicate this quite a bit because they show Suki doing much more than just staying local. She's involved in Fire Nation politics and security in the Smoke and Shadow comics, and she's involved in major Team Avatar conflicts in the Cranefish Town conflict, of course in the Promise comics and those line of comics. So if she was just going home and disappearing like that, I don't think it would really fit with what we know in the comics. It would kind of be weird for her to just disappear off to her island and never show her face again if she was so involved in the politics early on after the war. So that one makes a little bit less sense, but I think it is still possible, but I'm not too convinced on it just yet. What do you think? The last and most interesting one is that the franchise is deliberately keeping Suki's fate ambiguous to use her in a future story, maybe as a main character. The official Avatar Studios timeline highlights many major franchise events, but doesn't resolve Suki's ultimate fate, and that could be on purpose. Avatar actually has a history of leaving some personal history gaps unfilled for long periods, and Suki seems to be one of those resolved spaces. This would match the pattern that has been seen in fan discussions. People keep searching for an answer because the canon really hasn't supplied one for so long. So what could they be saving her? Well, we know that there was originally supposed to be 3 animated movies. One was supposed to be Zuko, of course the Aang movie, and then there was an unknown third movie, maybe on Kyoshi. But what if they made that movie on Suki? I think there's actually a lot of potential for a Suki movie, especially after the comics where we actually see her story inside the prison on the Boiling Rock before she gets rescued. I think she actually is a very strong character to give a movie to like that. They did also recently add Suki to the official Avatar Studios character page and gave her a little bit of a bio. Although it doesn't mention any new information, it's interesting that they've chosen to add her there because that may suggest that they are working on something for her or about her in the background. Or it could just be in preparation to bring her into the movie, which is what I think is the most likely option. However, interestingly, this entry in the databank or in the character listing on Avatar Studios website does actually say that Suki has now learned how to chi block. Now that's interesting because that was shown in a very old comic called Shells, which was released all the way back in 2014, back before Avatar Studios even formed. And it tells us that Suki learned how to chi block from Ty Lee. Now, if that is on the new Avatar Studios listing, that could mean that it would play a role either in the Aang movie or in Suki's own content whenever she gets some. That's very interesting, and I'm really glad that we finally learned that officially in this new Avatar Studios canon. I think she's going to be in the movie, but she's not as central of a character as the rest of Team Avatar. Therefore, she's not on the t-shirts, and therefore we don't know her fate until the movie comes out, probably in October. So let me know what you think. Why is Suki not in the advertising for this movie so far? Is she completely irrelevant in the movie? Is she such a small part? Or is she actually dead like some of the unsettling fan theories would like to say? Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you made it this far, drop a thank Mr. Zuko in the comments down below, and I'd love to hear you speculate in the comments your theories down below. I'll see you in the next one.